This incredible story happened in Kenya. Kenneth, an experienced ranger, along with his staff, patrolled Amboseli National Park, which was located near the border with Tanzania. Their job was primarily to monitor the elephant population and protect the herd from poachers. The elephant herd consisted of around 40 animals. That is why everyone was happy to hear the news that one of the female elephants, named Peru, was pregnant. The team was excited at the prospect of a new member of the elephant family. First, however, Peru had to survive the pregnancy, which was not an easy task. It would take almost 22 months for the baby to be born. Because Amboseli National Park was not a zoo, the veterinarians there were unable to use Peru for the medical examinations they would have liked to perform. Instead, they observed them from a distance, paying close attention to their behavior and noting anything that was unusual. Peru became increasingly withdrawn, even from her firstborn daughter. While this wasn't entirely unusual, more worrying were the signs of bleeding. The rangers had noticed significant blood loss over several days and feared a miscarriage. At Peru's age, this could pose a serious threat to her health. The conservationists kept a close eye on them. One morning, Kenneth noticed from a distance a group of elephants that were clearly in distress. They stamped their feet at the base of a large marula tree. Kenneth immediately felt that something was wrong. The sky darkened and visibility was poor, so he drove his jeep toward the commotion to find out what was going on. His headlights illuminated the tree trunk and the elephants turned to him. Behind them lay Peru, breathing heavily. One leg rested on the other, and her head was to one side. She seemed confused and dazed. Kenneth decided to call for backup to conduct a thorough survey of Peru and stayed in his car to keep an eye on the herd. If Peru was injured, there was a possibility that the other elephants could react aggressively. When the vets finally arrived, it was already dark. The gentle hum of mosquitoes filled the air, and the grounds were lit by a sea of stars as far as the eye could see. Peru was studied under this lonely marula tree. A young veterinarian stroked Peru's thick, rough skin, his hand nearly crushed by the elephant's gigantic body. He could feel her heartbeat and she seemed to be breathing normally. The rest of the herd had gathered around them in a semicircle, anxiously waiting for the humans to do their work. They trusted the vets because they knew each of them by face. However, when the vet began drawing blood, Peru's leg twitched uncontrollably. There was a wave of movement, and each elephant jostled to get a better look. Peru's firstborn daughter stood at the front of the crowd, not understanding what was happening. Everyone had known for hours that something was wrong. The vet slowly brought the samples back into the truck to check for possible imbalances and nutritional deficiencies. Most importantly, they had to find out whether Peru had an illness and how her body was coping with the pregnancy. Peru was severely dehydrated, and there was a possibility that there was a blood clot somewhere in her body. Peru was connected to a drip and given medication. A spotlight was set up to illuminate the area as the vets worked diligently under the direction of Kenneth, who was still wiping mosquitoes from his face. Together with the team, he stabilized Peru, who slowly regained consciousness. The good news was that there were no signs of fatal illness, but they still didn't know where their illness came from, which increasingly worried Kenneth. That night, he didn't want to leave Peru alone, so he slept in his jeep and tried to sleep for a few moments whenever he could. As soon as he noticed the elephants moving, he shook himself awake, started his car, and followed their trail wherever it led him. Over the next week, Kenneth continued this exchange with his colleagues to continue monitoring Peru. Aziz, a young aspiring veterinarian still in training, accompanied him as needed. He was nervous and felt completely out of place, but he was one of the few on the team willing to work overtime. He wanted to make a difference, and a great responsibility lay on his shoulders. The big day was soon coming. Peru was about to be born. That night, Kenneth was on duty and fell asleep in his car with Aziz sitting next to him. Aziz had learned the importance of watching the elephants at night, as this was usually the time when they gave birth. The area was dimly lit by the car's headlights. Through the binoculars, Aziz kept a careful eye on the elephants and noticed that Peru became restless and stood up. He shook Kenneth's arm and told his boss that the time had come. Kenneth rubbed his eyes, yawned, and took the binoculars from him. "Good catch," he said to his young partner. Now they hoped that everything would go smoothly. Suddenly, an elephant's head and legs appeared. It was amazing. Aziz had never seen a live birth in elephants, and in less than half an hour it was all over. But then they experienced another surprise. Just as Kenneth was radioing the good news to base camp, another elephant head appeared. His jaw dropped in shock and he screamed. Peru gave birth to twins. Now it all made sense, especially regarding Peru's illness, because twin pregnancies were extremely dangerous for elephants. Kenneth explained to Aziz that in the decades he had worked in the industry, he had never seen an elephant give birth to twins. The last time an elephant twin birth took place in Amboseli National Park was almost 40 years ago. A deeply religious man, Kenneth looked up at the sky and felt like he had just witnessed a miracle. But then the tide turned. When Aziz looked through the binoculars, he spotted something unusual and asked his boss if it was normal for the elephant calf to be bleeding. With his vision clearing, Kenneth realized that Aziz was right. One of the calves had a significant amount of blood on its back. It must have been injured either during or immediately after birth. That wasn't a good sign at all. Over the next few hours, the situation became critical. Kenneth had to rally the veterinary team by waking people at home early in the morning. Fortunately, none of them declined the call. Everyone was determined to ensure that the injured calf recovered. Peru kindly granted them the opportunity to examine their newborns, knowing they had their best interests at heart. None of the vets could explain the cause of the wound. All they could do was clean her up, make sure she didn't get infected, and keep monitoring her. Fortunately, people managed to help, and the little elephant calf made a full recovery. The people were relieved and happy because this was an important step towards the conservation of elephants. If this story touched you as much as it did us, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment below. Thanks for watching.